Welcome to Shared Passing Thoughts. Okay, so we're going to be using an Amethyst Sapphire deck here. The main focus of this is to ramp and draw. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and kick everything that's above a 3 cost. And we're trying to get a 1 cost character. Okay, there we go. We got Chip. So we want to play Chip at the beginning, but our opponent's going to go first here. And then we want to, on turn 2, play Grandma Tala, and that is to give us some ink ramp. Okay, so we can get rid of Let It Go since we have 2 copies, and it's a 5 cost, so we don't want to keep things in our hand that we're not going to be playing until later. We want to try to get our early stuff out here, so Chip will give us board presence. We do need to deal with the Queen, because if they shift that Queen, that will not be good. Okay, so they're going to be doing some character ramping, which is pretty normal for Amber. And that Stitch is a problem also, so we need to get rid of that Queen, and we need to get rid of that Stitch, because they both can shift. So the Queen's gone. Now we need to get Grandma Tala out, so that way we can try to ramp into our Hades and our Uzma into our Let It Go. Big threat right now is that Stitch though, because if they shift the Stitch, that will give them their setup. And it's going to be hard to remove this early in the game. Okay, Tinkerbell also is another one that they can shift into, so they have a lot of shift options. They've also got a lead on lore, and we can go ahead and do Crab here. So let's get rid of Uzma because she's a higher cost, not going to be playing it anytime soon. We'll go ahead and play Crab so that way we can buff Grandma. Take out the Stitch so they can't shift with it. Grandma's going to become ink for us. So now we just need to deal with this Tinkerbell that can also shift. It's just the main thing we don't want them to do is we don't want them to shift and get a really strong lead in the early game. Right now they've got a lore lead, but we're able to remove things that could be threats for us. Okay, so Tinkerbell is an option that we can go ahead and try to remove, which we could just use another Crab to buff our Crab that's already on the field. Oh, looks like they had a misplay. They probably discarded something they didn't want to discard. And there was that Stitch Rockstar, so we did avoid that Stitch Rockstar. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and buff our Crab with Crab. Take out the Tinkerbell so we don't have to worry about the shift. And the reason we just don't want that shift is not only is it a better stat card that they're able to play cheaper, but it's mainly being able to challenge the turn it comes into play, and Tinkerbell's Giant Fairy's ability is not something we want to deal with, being able to challenge us immediately. Okay, we've got really good board presence now, and even... Okay, so we got Hades, that's good. So if we need to remove something, we can definitely do that pretty easily with Hades. What we want to do is go ahead and give us a stronger hand advantage. So right now we have way more cards in our hand than our opponent does. We have more characters on the in play as well, which is looking really strong right now. Okay, now we could have played the crab to go ahead and try to rush out more, but I don't want to do that because they could be running things like Grab Your Swords and Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, which can deal damage to us. Okay, so didn't really matter because our hand got discarded. But now we have a really good situation here. So we can use Friends on the other side to draw more cards. We can use Rabbit to get board presence and draw a card. And when it gets banished, draw another card. And we have all these Popsicles, which will really help us cycle through our deck. And the main thing that we're wanting to draw and cycle to, especially now since they've played Stitch Rockstar, is we want to get an Uzma, we want to get a Hades, or Let It Go. But we really want a Hades or an Uzma because those will give us board presence. Hades is better because it's just giving them ink and not card advantage. Uzma is going to be better than Let It Go because she'll give us board presence and will let us remove a card, except they'll get to draw 2 cards for it. Okay, so our card advantage is massive, but we want to be careful because they could do another whole new world. We definitely want to go ahead and get more ink. Now we have enough ink to play Hades, which is the highest ink cost card in our deck. Okay, so we're challenging with Crab. Then Crab will buff Maleficent, which doesn't really matter in this situation, but if Stitch Rockstar was exerted, then we would have been able to deal with him. But we've already moved 2 of theirs. We got more ink for that. It really would have been nice if we would have been able to remove Stitch Rockstar to prevent them from getting more cards, but we still have a better board presence and we still have more cards in our hand. So we're still looking out for swords and Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, but they are lower on ink right now, so they're not going to be able to pull off huge combos. But there was Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, which got inked. They're discarded there. They're swords, so they just damaged all of our stuff. And there's the Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, so there you go, yeah. And being able to sing it. Singing that swords with the Giant Fairy play was what we didn't want to have happen. But we have plenty of cards in our hand. They've pretty much already done everything that they can do. So let's get the Tinkerbell Giant Fairy out of the way so they can't continue to damage our stuff. It does kind of suck that they're getting draw 2, but Tinkerbell Giant Fairy in play, ready to challenge, is not a good situation for us. So again, we've already got a better board presence than them. If we lose Goat, we're still getting another lore. We got a better board presence than them, and if we do lose Goat, then we'll still be gaining lore. So there's a whole new world, so we know that they can go ahead and discard our hands, which they're probably getting ready to do. There we go. Hands get discarded, but that is awesome that we have 2 Let It Goes now. And we technically have enough ink to play both of them, which we might want to do because them singing, especially being able to sing Grab Your Swords and A Whole New World, is not really good for us. We do have to be careful since we run a lot of cards that draw, and they run A Whole New World. They could deck us out, so we do have to watch our the number of cards in our deck as well. Okay, so we have 2 Let It Go and Hades, which is amazing. So let's play Hades to get board presence, get rid of Stitch Rockstar, which is one of their options to sing. We can then sing with Uzma to get rid of their other singing option, and then go ahead and take out their small singing option. So their board is wiped clean again, and we now have the board presence again. They do have more cards in their hand this time. But this is a really strong situation because now we are a threat when it comes to singing. And we're able to lure for quite a lot at this point. We can go ahead and lure for 6. Okay, there's the Tinkerbell Giant Fairy coming out again. So we have to get rid of that Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, just because if it challenges, it can start messing up our characters with a pretty good amount of damage. So we have to take out that Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Okay, so we have plenty of drawing options here, but we do need to do Let It Go so we can get rid of that Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, and we're just going to sing with it so we can maintain our ink value. Go ahead and lure, because we need to go ahead and start trying to close the game out. Now they still could at this point play a Grab Your Swords or a Whole New World, but since they don't have the singing option, I'm okay with them paying a lot of ink to do that, because that's just going to maintain that they don't have a strong board presence. We're just going to go ahead and get a really strong board presence and try to actually bait a swords. Because if they play the swords, yes, they're going to get rid of a lot of our characters, but I would rather them go ahead and try to get rid of our characters instead of beating us in lore. Except that was a really good combo there, so they got another Grab Your Swords and Tinkerbell at the same time. So that hurt. If it was just a Grab Your Swords, not as big of a deal. But a Swords and a Tinkerbell Giant Fairy? So we're doing a back and forth on control here. So we have to get rid of that Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. It's too deadly to us. Now, we could go ahead and play Popsicle in order to heal our Hades. We do have to watch out our deck, though, because we're starting to get really low on cards. But let's play the Popsicle so that way we can draw and then also heal our Hades to make it a little bit more difficult for them to remove them. So now a Smash or a Cannons or a Grab Your Swords, or even a Grab Your Swords and the Tinkerbell combo that they've been able to pull off twice now. None of that will deal with it. Now they could Tinkerbell Giant Fairy shift, and that would take out our Hades, and they would be able to take out, and they would be able to deal damage to one of our others. But the thing that we're looking at is we have good board presence, we're beating them on board presence, and we have another Hades in our hand. So we can remove any kind of threat that they throw down. Okay, so they do have Ariel, which is really good for their singing, so we have to be careful of that. That gives them a chance to pop off with a Whole New World and with Grab Your Swords. Cinderella, not as much of a threat as Ariel. Okay, there's Grab Your Swords, paying it straight up. Okay, so we do have another Hades so that we can remove, which right now, I mean, Ariel would be good to remove for singing, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Tinkerbell because we don't want Tinkerbell Giant Fairy coming down. I'm going to go ahead and play Goat so we can go ahead and get some lore. That way, even if they remove Goat, we're going to still be gaining lore. Right now, still maintaining board presence. We are devastating them on lore. They do have more ink than us, and they have one more card in their hand, but we have 2 more characters on the board than them. And we have enough lore potential right now to win the game, so they have to deal with what we have on the board, or it's GG. So it looks like they're having some hesitation, probably because they're realizing this is probably GG at this point. If it does come back to our turn though, and they are able to mess us up somehow, then, because they could still do like grab your sword, sing with Ariel, they could play a Tinkerbell. If they were to mess us up like that, we still have draw potential to try to draw into something better. So we can always do Friends on the Other Side and Maleficent Sorceress. Yeah, and I think that is GG then, unless they play... Yeah, it's probably just going to be GG. Yeah, they're just showing us what they have in their hand at this point. Yep, so let's just go ahead and quest and secure the GG. Good game. And that is Amethyst Sapphire. It's more of a control deck. You just want to draw, you want to ramp, and then you want to remove your opponent's threats. But there you go. Amethyst Sapphire on Pixelborn. Great game of Lorcana.